Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day to you, wherever you may be. This is a special episode of Bayou Sports Talk. It's been a while, fam. It's been a while. And we are going to dive in. Coach, holla at them.
Peace and blessings to the family. It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC. Major shout out to the Louisiana All American Sports Network. Shout out to Envision Photography and Video. And shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. In the words of my brother, Black Fight Fan TV, we back again and we black again. You dig?
All right, everyone. For who do not know about Bayou Sports Talk, come on in. Welcome. I'm Kay. I'm your moderator, and we're going to just dive on in. We have so much to talk about. And so we're going to go ahead, and these are a few of our topics we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Bayou Classic. Man. That's a lot to dive into. We have to talk about Southern University's new head coach, Marshall Faulk, and we're going to talk about uniforms and the hiring staff, and we're going to get into it all about Southern University. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the NFL, NBA, just talk about a little bit of that before we truly dive in. Coach, what are your thoughts? Have you been watching the NBA and the NFL? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been watching the NFL and the NBA, and unfortunately, our two local teams, the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Pelicans, they both suck. The Truthfully speaking, some of us Saints fans was hoping that the Saints would have drafted Shador in the second round once he fell out the first round. But even with that being said, even if the Saints would have drafted him, I don't think it would have made a difference. At times, the defense has been terrible. At times, the offensive line has been terrible. At times, the skilled players haven't been making plays. But more than anything, I think the biggest issue is Mickey Loomis. Gail Benson, she has a great degree of loyalty to Mickey Loomis, who's the general manager of the Saints. At one point, we was wondering who was more vital to the success of the Saints, Sean Payton or Mickey Loomis. And I think we clearly have to answer that question because the Broncos are thriving and doing well. The Saints are struggling. At this point, I think it's time for Gail Benson to part ways with Mickey Loomis and get you another general manager and just keep things pushing because he's made some questionable decisions, like trading Rashid Shaheed to the Seattle Seahawks for a 4th and 5th round pick, not drafting Shador Sanders, not getting the proper offensive lineman, uh, you know, Tyler Shuck at quarterback, drafting him in the second round. I wasn't thrilled with that move, the 26-year-old rookie. So at the end of the day, I'm not thrilled with the Saints. I'm not thrilled with the Pelicans either because, they're struggling also. Word on the curb is that Zion Williamson is on the trade block. So at the end of the day, both the Pelicans and the Saints are struggling. We're not going to waste a whole lot of time talking about those two franchises, even though I love them both. They're both terrible. So we can just kind of keep it pushing past them.
All right, Coach. Well, let's jump on into the Bayou Classic then. What are your thoughts? I know you were there in person. You saw it all. You witnessed it. What are your thoughts? How did you feel about Southern bringing home that victory against Grambling State University?
Well, first and foremost, for all of the Grambling State University fans that had their chest poked out and was talking real greasy and talking real crazy leading up to the 2025 Bayou Classic or leading up to the 52nd Annual Bayou Classic, I'm like, pump y'all brakes. Grambling does have 7 wins. However, of those 7 wins, 3 of those wins came against Division II schools, and one of those Division II schools lost in the Division II playoffs like week before last, Kentucky State. Basically, they cheated to beat Kentucky State. And in addition to that, Hayden Benoit, Grambling starting quarterback. Essentially, he's their four-string quarterback because their first three quarterbacks in front of him got hurt. So at the end of the day, for Grambling fans to be, so bold and so arrogant, like basically, Grambling was gonna come into the Bayou Classic and blow Southern out. I never saw it. I always thought it was gonna be a close game. I picked Grambling to win 21-20. However, I was happy that I was wrong because, Southern, they found a way to pull it out. All throughout the season, in those close scenarios, those close situations, whether we talking about FAMU, Texas Southern, they found a way to lose all the close games. But finally, they found a way to win a close game. And truthfully speaking, people ask me behind the scenes, like, where would you rank it in terms of all-time Bayou Classics? It's not my top 5 to be truthful. However, it is, it was a pretty exciting game. Don't get me wrong, it didn't have the same type of energy and atmosphere and juice in the building like they had in the late 90s. However, it did have more juice in the building and more excitement in the building than recent years of the Bayou Classic. And truthfully speaking, I'm not gonna lie, it was a good event. I'll probably say it's in my top 10, but it's not my top 5. My top 5 classics are like 99 probably would be number 1, 98, 2000, I'm gonna say 2002, 2003, 2004, 2014. All of those classics rank ahead of this 52nd Annual Bayou Classic. But even with that being said, it was a great event. I'm glad Southern was able to pull it out. And, major props to Barry Remo, who was the MVP for Southern for the Bayou Classic. He had 7 carries, 100 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. These last couple weeks of the season against Grambling and against Texas Southern, Barry Remo really has emerged. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Trey Holly is still the feature back, but I think Barry Remo has emerged as an excellent complimentary back. Even though they're, in terms of size, stature, and playing style, they're exactly the same, I still think he's a good compliment to Trey Holly. So if I'm Marshall Faulk, that probably be the 2 top players on my list for Southern that I would keep. 1 would be Trey Holly, 2 would be Barry Remo. But overall, I thought it was a great Bayou Classic in terms of, because usually if one team is down, usually you don't get the kind of attendance. I mean, there was over 63,000 people at the 52nd Annual Bayou Classic. I was pleasantly surprised and shocked when we got there, the amount of people that we saw, and it just was a festive event. So I was happy I was wrong. I was happy Southern was able to pull it out, and it gave Southern some excellent momentum to move into the offseason.
All right, Coach. Let me ask you this. With that being said, do you think, even though the one win was earlier prior to the Bayou Classic, do you think that win gave them a mindset? Because everybody thinks about the Bayou Classic as it has all the cards in it. Forget the regular season, it's just the make or break of Louisiana. Did you have that thought process going in as the Bayou Classic? We have to win this thing. We have to keep the crown for the Bayou Classic, or you just was like, it was just whatever?
I'm gonna keep it a buck. I was going to be in the building because, over the years, the times that we didn't go to the Bayou Classic, Southern always found a way to pull an upset and beat Grambling. Because I remember, like, I think one year, like in the late 80s, early 90s, we didn't go, and because basically we thought Southern was gonna lose, and Southern won. And of course, in senior pass, we didn't go to that one either. But for the exception of the '05 one, essentially every time we didn't go, Southern would always find a way to pull an upset. So I just wanted to be there because I had a feeling that, hey, something could potentially happen. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm not anticipating a whole lot from this Southern team because, Like you said, they only had one win. But when you get to rivalry games like this, the records go out the window. I knew it was going to be a close game. I didn't think Southern was going to pull it out, but like I said, I'm glad I was wrong. But overall, I wasn't expecting a whole lot from Southern. And the irony is they won that game. That really was the best game they played all season, because even though they only won by 1 point, it goes to show you how much they struggled during the season, because at points they were struggling in all three phases of the game in terms of both offense, defense, and special teams. So defensively, like, this probably is the worst Southern defense I've seen in my life, truthfully speaking. But they gave up a lot of plays in the secondary. But one thing I did like Saturday, last week, was the fact that they didn't allow Grambling to just run the ball down their throat, and they dominated up front on both sides of the ball. So I think that was key, especially defensively. Grambling didn't have a whole lot of yards rushing. So I think that was the real key. And not only that, but Barry Remo had 100 yards rushing. Trey Holly had 18 carries. Amarian Asbury was able to chip in. So I think the running game was key. Southern being able to run the ball and Southern being able to really limit Grambling's run. Hayden Benoit did play well. And, I knew he wasn't like the second coming of Doug Williams or Devontae Kincaid or Bruce Eugene or anything like that. In fact, he's not even Kendrick Bernard in my mind. But I'm not going to lie, he played well. Really, Grambling got most of their work done through the passing game, and Southern got most of their work done through the running game. But overall, it was a great game. But I wasn't expecting a whole lot from Southern going into the Bayou Classic, to be honest.
Okay, I understand that. But my future little alum to come, he was so optimistic. Oh, Southern is going to win. Every game came, Southern is going to win. And when the Bayou Classic came, he said, Mom, are you going to win? I watch. I said, no, I will not be watching. And after he was like, I think they're going to win. So I kind of watched here or there, but to be truthfully honest with you, I didn't see all the bells and whistles that were um worth it all, because really and truly, in my opinion, Southern should have lost that game, because Grambling, they dropped the ball. To be truthfully honest with you, they should have walked away with another Bayou Classic, but
Well, I mean,
still.
like I said, I think that was the good part. Whether we talking about Texas Southern, where Southern was leading by 14 at a certain point, and they were leading by 10 in the second half, they found a way to lose that game. And we talking about FAMU, they were up about 14-3 at the start of the second quarter. They started to, crumble at the end of the first half. In the second half, they fell apart. They found a way to lose that game also. So I was happy that they were able to find a way to win, as opposed to finding a way to lose like they've done so many times during the course of the season. So I think there's a grain of truth to it. But even with that being said, I mean, for the last defensive play of the game, for you to get a peanut Timmer punch out, and for Kelvin
Yes.
Givens to recover it, no, I'm not going. I'm not. To me, if you had to say, did Southern win it, or did more so Grambling lose it, I would say Southern won it, because all throughout the season, Southern found a way to lose those type of games. So I would say Southern did find a way to win it, even though, Grambling, they squandered some opportunities. But even with that being said, you got to give Southern credit, especially, like I said, their defensive line. Maybe Kelby Givens inspired the defensive line, but the front four was pretty aggressive, and they played well, and they were dominant. I think that was like one of the real key factors to Southern winning. And not only that, but Southern has a history of getting goal line stands in a Bayou Classic, like year before last. When they had Hugh Jackson as the head coach, and Floyd Chalk the Ford was running all over Southern. Southern found a way to get a goal line stand at the end of that Bayou Classic in '04, when Al Quan was the feature back. Seemed like he had been there for like 6 years, but that was like his fourth year in a row as Grambling's starting quarterback. They found a way to get a goal line stand that year. So there were like at least a few years that Southern was able to find a way to get a goal line stand. In this instance, this wasn't even a goal line stand. They just found a way to get a turnover and get off the field. That's something they hadn't been able to do the entire season. They really didn't take the ball away a lot, and they was able to find a way to do it. So, congrats to them, and salute to those Jags. And it was a good positive note to in the season and go into the off season with some good momentum. But truthfully speaking, I didn't expect a whole lot. But the one thing about it, your little future Southern University alum, all throughout the season, it will always be a point in the game where he would have to use the restroom like at a critical point. So we used the restroom when Grambling took the field. Grambling's band took the field before Glorilla came out and everything, and we was going back to the seat, and we was because mom was like, "Come on," because years past, we had family members that would go to the game, but they wouldn't sit in the seats. They would just stand by the concession areas the whole time. Or you would have people that would be higher up, and they would come sit in lower level seats because the seats were vacant. So now they really request that you show the usher your tickets before you go to your seat, which I'm almost certain they probably don't do that at the Saints games, but that's another story. And basically, we were going back to the seats, and I saw Barry Remo running toward the end zone on the screen. So that was a key pivotal point that we missed in the game because he had to use the restroom. But it was all good, but it was a great occasion, and I'm glad he was able to get the dub.
Okay, well, let's move on, Coach, because we have so much to talk about with Southern University, how they have hired a new head coach. Hopefully, this will get things in a right direction for Southern University Jaguars, because at one point it was kind of shameful if you only won one game, not including the Bayou Classic. But what are your thoughts about their new head coach, Marshall Faulk? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it has breathed new life in the Jaguar Nation. Truthfully speaking, you know, you was never gonna get 100% of Jaguar Nation to buy into the hire, no matter who you hired. However, I think, especially on my channel, like most of the interaction I've had with members of Jaguar Nation has been positive. There was a there is a segment of Jaguar Nation that thinks this is a gamble, but everything in life is a gamble. The reason they believe it's a gamble because even though Marshall Faulk is from New Orleans and Marshall Faulk is an NFL Hall of Famer, essentially all he has is 1 year of coaching experience under his belt, being that he was a running backs coach for Deion Sanders in Colorado University this past season. So basically, he really doesn't have any coaching experience. Whereas, you look at somebody like Trey Oliver, who was a former Southern University assistant coach. He's currently the head coach at North Carolina Central. Many people feel like Trey Oliver was just using Southern as a bargaining chip and leverage to get more money from his alma mater, which he's alum of, North Carolina Central. He's currently the head coach. So, there were individuals that's in the chat as we speak, and that basically they wanted Trey Oliver. However, Southern decided to hire Marshall Faulk because, he's going to bring a lot of attention with him in terms of he's an NFL Hall of Famer. He worked for the NFL Network, so on and so forth. So it was a huge event when Southern announced him as their 22nd head football coach. It was a lot of fanfare. The human jukebox was there. The cheerleaders were there. You had major outlets talking about it, major media networks. So at the end of the day, they wanted the attention that came with him. And in addition to that, the brand deals, the sponsorship, the other additional streams of income that's going to come with hiring Marshall Faulk. So I think overall, I mean, it's a gamble. Everything in life is a gamble. But at the end of the day, I think it was a good move. I think the major thing about it is he has to put the right ancillary pieces around him in terms of the right assistant coaches, in terms of, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, position coaches, so on and so forth. But we're going to get more into that a little bit later on in the show.
Okay, so with that being said, Coach, what do you think? And we're going to get to that, but do you think with his experience under Deion with Colorado, and Colorado came from some rough beginnings as well when Deion came on, even though I'm not saying they're great right now, but you see the potential and the things they're trying to build. Do you think he can get that going at Southern?
I think so. In terms of, you know, I think one thing is understood. He's not going to bring an entire team with him, but he's definitely going to bring some players with him from Colorado. In addition to him bringing
Wait,
some
so,
players.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So you think they will jump the bandwagon from Colorado with Coach Dion to come to Southern University?
It happens. It happens every season, boo. The reason being, I'm gonna just give you an example. We're gonna talk about this a little bit later on, but the SWAC championship game, Prairie View played against Jackson State at the Veterans Memorial Stadium. Tremaine Jackson took some players with him from his previous coaching job to Prairie View, and it not just him. Even when Chennis Berry came from his previous stop, he took some players with him to South Carolina State. So players are going to follow the coach. In fact, when Deion Sanders left from Jackson State to go to Colorado, of course he took Shador with him, which is his son. He also took Shiloh, and he also took Travis Hunter, who ended up being the number one pick of the draft and a Heisman Trophy winner. So yes, he's gonna take players from Colorado with him, guys that weren't playing, that weren't starting, that were buried on the depth chart. Like I said, he's not gonna take a whole team with him. I mean, I don't. My expectation is not that he's gonna bring, with the addition of Trey Hall. Of course, he already has Trey Hall at Southern, who transferred from LSU. But my anticipation wasn't that, oh, he's gonna bring 32 starters from Colorado to Southern. No, he's probably gonna bring a few assistant coaches, and in addition to that, he's probably gonna bring a handful of players, maybe a quarterback, maybe a running back, maybe a few linemen, offensive and defensive linemen. And because those players, he has a certain degree of familiarity with him. And in addition to that, they see this as an opportunity, just the way players at LSU in the early to late 90s would transfer from LSU to Southern, and they would come to Southern and jump right into the starting lineup. Players won't play at the end of the day. I mean, don't get me wrong, with the transfer portal, it's like the Wild Wild West. Guys are not, they're not as loyal as they were back in the gap. But even with that being said, he's gonna have some players that's gonna come with him to Colorado. No question about it.
Okay, well, Coach, and one thing for those who may not know, that he did leave Colorado to accept this position here at Southern University. So I really hope things will move in the right direction for Southern, because we truly need it. So with that being said, what kind of coaching staff do you think he needs? Do you think he needs to clean house? Do you think he needs to hire a new offensive coach, assistant coaches? What do you think he needs to bring on board to get them moving in the right direction, that we can have a great season next year?
Well, truthfully speaking, in terms of the cleaning house aspect of it, that has already been done. Um, they haven't officially fired every last Southern University assistant coach, but guys like Mark Frederick, former Southern University defensive tackle / nose guard, who in my mind, in my lifetime, he's the best Southern University nose guard I've seen. DeMarcus Miller, he's been fired. Former offensive lineman Damon Nivens, who's a elite level offensive lineman at Southern, but he wasn't a great coach. Neither was DeMarcus Miller. And you got to realize, great players don't always make great coaches. That's the concern some of the members of Jaguar Nation are having in terms of Marshall Faulk. The fact that he's unproven. Like, if you look at Deion Sanders, at least Deion Sanders had experience in terms of, coaching, like Pop Warner football with his sons. And then eventually, the high school ranks, being a head football coach on a high school level at Prime Prep Academy, in at a couple of different schools. So he has some experience. Essentially, Marshall Faulk, they say he's the smartest and most brilliant football mind that many people really don't know about. But even with that being said, this is essentially his first head coaching job and his second year in coaching. But, he's already gotten rid of the vast majority of Southern University's coaching staff, but many members of Jaguar Nation that really know football, they really want him to keep the guy that was the interim head coach and former Alcorn State head coach, Fred McNair. I mean, maybe not necessarily be the offensive coordinator at Southern, but they want him to be like maybe a quarterback coach, maybe assistant head coach, maybe like a senior advisor, something like that. But for the most part, he's already pretty much whitewashed the vast majority of Southern University's coaching staff. And truthfully speaking, you really can't blame him. This Southern University team is not the worst team in Southern University history, but it's among the worst. It's historically bad. This is the first time a Southern University team has gone winless at home at A.W. Mumford Stadium, Peterson Field in, I think, since the 30s or the 40s. Like, it's been bad. So, a team is historically bad. Those coaches are attached to that historically bad team, and you really don't want to have any association with them in terms of bringing them on your next staff. So, I mean, it was kind of to be expected. But we're going to talk about later on in the show in terms of who Southern should hire as the defensive coordinator, who Southern should hire as the offensive coordinator, so on and so forth. But, yeah, they've already, for the most part, pretty much cleaned house,
Okay. Well, Coach, tell me, what are your thoughts about uniforms? Because what direction do you think they should go in? Because, I like the sleek, the look. I really like when they change it up for whatever game. So if they have the gray game, I would like for them to reflect that gray. If they have blued out, I would like for them to wear blue. What are your thoughts about their uniforms?
Well, I asked this in my own Southern University football Facebook group, and I asked it on my YouTube channel, and engagement was with that. However, I asked the same question in other Southern University Facebook groups that I'm in, and it it didn't go the way I anticipated, to say the least. But even with that being said, I think the fact that you hired Marshall Faulk, some of the people in the Facebook group, when I asked the question, they was like, Southern don't need to worry about no uniforms. They need to worry about, improving athletic facilities. They need to worry about improving this, improving that. Well, to generate the funds to improve athletic facilities and so on and so forth, you need to generate revenue, and you need to have brand deals and sponsorships and things of that nature. And part of where you generate income and revenue is by selling jerseys. So, this has been an ongoing conversation between myself and my brother Jay Good. Salute to him. He's in the LDBC with me. He played football at Southern. And basically, last year when I met Scotty, from off script, salute to Scotty, at Southern University's homecoming against Alcorn State, that conversation that Scotty and I had, it led to a behind-the-scenes conversation that Jay Good and I had, because essentially Scotty, he's kind of new to the space, even though he has one of the highest subscriber counts in HBCU football for all intents and purposes. He didn't understand what all the hype behind Southern University was. And Jay Good was saying part of the reason why somebody like Scotty, who really kind of came into the space when Deion Sanders came to Jackson State, the thing Scotty didn't understand was Southern University's brand has eroded over the years. And the thing that allowed me to make the connection with him, to understand what Southern used to be and why there's so much hype about Southern. Scott is a Dallas Cowboys fan. And essentially, from a branding standpoint, essentially Southern University and the Dallas Cowboys, even though I can't stand the Cowgirls, I'm gonna just keep it a buck. I can't stand them. They probably like my least favorite team in the NFL. The correlation is perfect when you look at the dominance that Southern University had in the 90s and the dominance that the Dallas Cowboys had in the 90s. They are parallel. And the fall from grace that Southern University has had, I think, has been more dramatic than the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are a little bit more relevant at this point than Southern University is. But one thing from a branding standpoint, when you talk about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, or even if you talk about the star logo on the side of their helmet, they always wear the same uniform, like literally every single game for the exception of when a team decides, hey, we're not gonna let them wear white at home. We won't wear, you know, uh, white or whatever. Uh, if they come on, if Dallas on the road, hey, we won't wear white to kind of take away the white uniforms from them. From a branding standpoint, basically Jay Good was saying that Southern's brand has eroded from the fact that they're not winning the way they used to win. But not only that, but Southern has had so many different uniform changes. His motto is if you're a dominant program like Southern University, like the Dallas Cowboys, like the New York Yankees, like Alabama, like the Green Bay Packers, if you're so synonymous with a certain look and it's your trademark, you shouldn't constantly deviate from that. And it was kind of an ongoing question with him, and not only that, but on social media in terms of Southern University Shades of Blue, they were saying that literally, even though Southern University's official school colors are Columbia blue and gold, like literally Southern has worn every shade of blue since like the late '80s. They've worn royal blue, navy blue, Columbia blue, and like literally every shade of blue you can think of. So essentially, what he was saying is, from a branding standpoint, I also did a 90 plan that one of my coaching friends was telling me about. The irony is, I didn't think Southern was going to hire Marshall Faulk when my coaching friend laid out this 90 plan, which is another video that's on my channel here. But basically, he was saying that whether you want, some people feel Southern should go back with throwback uniforms that Southern had success with in the 90s. Other people believe Southern should get like completely new uniforms as long as it's Columbia blue and gold. Cool. But more than anything, the overall consensus we're having is the fact that Southern University needs to Southern University needs to basically have a marketing plan to sell jerseys, sell a Marshall Faulk 28 jersey. And not only that, but former Southern University legends like Aeneas Williams, like Mel Blount, like maybe like Bryant Lee, Eric Randall, Sean Wallace, whoever, Leonard Tillery, Melvin Williams. Southern University has had so many legends over the years. Basically, you want to capitalize on bringing Marshall Faulk in as the head coach and help generate revenue by selling a sellable, just good, nice jersey, a high quality jersey, a Marshall Faulk 28, an Aeneas Williams jersey, a Mel Blount jersey, a Harry Carmichael jersey. You want to sell those jerseys to generate revenue. Now, in terms of, you know, should they keep their current uniforms? Should they get rid of them? Somebody like myself, yeah, I would be more a proponent of getting rid of the current jerseys. I'm not. My biggest thing is Southern jerseys are nice, but you haven't had success. Southern hasn't won a SWAC championship since 2013. And at the end of the day, I believe you kind of need to change, not just change the uniform, but you need to change a lot about your athletic program and your football program. And you need to rebuild your brand. Part of that is the jerseys. Part of it is having the right coaching staff. But more than anything, winning kind of cures all. And you need to get back to your winning ways. You need to win a Celebration Bowl and move forward from that point. But more overall, I'll be a proponent of them changing the jerseys. But one of the things I really couldn't stand, and your future alum, he brought this out too. He was like, Uncle Jim, how come every time we wear, they say, hey, Southern fans wear Columbia blue, the team wears like navy blue. They tell us to wear like navy, a camel, they wear another color. That's another thing they need to get straight, because over the last handful of years, if they tell the fans to wear gold, we wear gold and they wear Columbia blue. They tell the fans to wear Columbia blue, we wear gold, whatever. So they need to get all on one accord. If you want the fans to wear gold, then the team needs to wear gold jerseys. If you want the fans to wear Columbia blue, the team needs to wear Columbia blue. If it's pink out for breast cancer awareness, I'm not saying you should wear a pink jersey. You still can wear Columbia blue, but you need to have pink trim. If you want the fans to wear navy or camel, then y'all should have navy jerseys. So at the end of the day, uh, I think you should establish your brand with a specific set of maybe new or throwback jerseys. Either way, I like the uniform colors too. Uh, later 39, I like the uniform colors too, but I think you need to kind of stick with something to establish your identity and brand both on and off the field. You need to have a certain style of play on the field, and you need to have an identity in terms of the uniforms and jerseys that you wear.
Okay, Coach. Well, with that being said, let's move on to recruiting. Do you have any ideas? Who do you think they should recruit, whether it's on the field or off the field, that can help Southern University move forward in 2026 football season?
Well, in terms of any specific players, no. However, what they need to do, first thing he needs to do is he needs to get his coaching staff right. ASAP Rocky. We're gonna talk about it later on in the show in terms of who he should hire as his offensive coordinator, who he should hire as his defensive coordinator. You need an elite level offensive coordinator. You need an elite level defensive coordinator. You need some excellent position coaches. You need an elite level special teams coordinator because special teams at Southern has sucked over the years. You need an elite level offensive line coach. You need an elite level strength and conditioning coach. I do think he should try to keep Fred McNair on the coaching staff. But in terms of recruiting, the first thing he needs is a couple elite level quarterbacks. He needs to keep Trey Holly and Barry Remo, which I already talked about. So you need to keep Trey Holly and Barry Remo. You need a couple elite level quarterbacks. And you need some elite level players up front on both sides of the ball. You need some elite level defensive linemen and some elite level offensive linemen. And then after that point, you need an elite level defense. And then you can just kind of fill the rest of your roster out after that point. Just even if you look at the special teams aspect of it. If you look at Gramblin's kicker last Saturday compared to Nathan Zimmer, like Nathan Zimmer all throughout the year, either Nathan Zimmer, he squib kicks it, he sky kicks it, he corner kicks it. But when he does kick it deep, the furthest he can kick it is to maybe like the 10, 5-yard line. Whereas I don't care how good the opposing return man is for the other team. Every time Gramblin's kicker kicked it, he kicked it out the back of the end zone. In addition to that, I think he made like a 52-yard field goal. So Southern needs an elite level kicker. They need an elite level punter. And in addition to that, they need an elite level return man like Ezra Landry, like a Willie Quinn, like a Danny Johnson, like a Fred Bailey, like a Kenyatta Sparks. So Southern needs basically elite level players across the board. And, the fact that, I'm a Southern University content creator, basically, shout out to C. Wells of Swag Talk and Perry White at the Jaguar Journal and Carlos Brown. Basically, we kind of share and occupy the same space, even though I know we don't all have the exact same like fans for the most part. A lot of members of Jaguar Nation, they kind of watch all four of us. And on his platform this morning / afternoon, Carlos Brown was saying, people behind the scenes had told me this, like, Coach Kevin Walker, salute to him, and Desmond Allen, and different people I talked to behind the scenes. Basically they were saying, your boy Jay, salute to him too. Basically they were saying that Southern, as soon as Marshall Faulk was officially named the head coach, basically what they were saying is that Southern already had 2 elite level quarterbacks coming in. My brother Jared Lovin Green, we're gonna talk about it on HBCU Fanatics. We talked about it already. He was saying that basically one of the backup quarterbacks for Colorado, he transferred from Bethune-Cookman, and he was one of the backups at Colorado. Supposedly he's one of them, but Carlos Brown kind of confirmed it. They have 2 elite level quarterbacks coming into Southern with Marshall Faulk. So I think that's a good start in the right direction. But Southern needs a complete overhaul from a roster construction standpoint from top to bottom. I'm not, I'm not adverse to them taking players that's in the transfer portal from other SWAC teams. But if they're not first team all SWAC players, I'm not really interested in, or even if they have elite level first team all SWAC talent and it just was a bad situation for them on whatever SWAC team it was on, cool. But if it's not like an elite level talent, like maybe like a Nate Rembert type cat, like I'm not really interested in taking some of these players that just jumped in the portal from other SWAC teams. And of course, I had a video this morning that talked about 3 Southern University players. Southern number 1 receiver, Darren Morris, uh, defensive backs, Zay Frankston, Traylon James, they already entered the transfer portal. But overall, more than anything, Southern just needs elite level players. Of course, you want to recruit the I-10 corridor from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. You want to recruit Baton Rouge well. You want to recruit Louisiana well. And you just want to recruit both the region and the country. But more than anything, I'm not concerned about Southern getting players from specific schools more than anything. I'm just concerned about them getting elite level dogs across the board everywhere. So that's the main thing Marshall Faulk needs to do. It's going to be difficult, with only having one transfer portal window coming up. But more than anything, he needs to hit the ground running from a recruiting standpoint, and he needs elite level dogs across the board everywhere because Southern needs to completely overhaul their roster.
Okay, Coach. Well, let's take some time to hit you with some facts or cap. So tell me if you think it's a fact or is it a cap about Southern University. Are you ready, Coach?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Southern University's first major football championship was in 1949. Is that a fact or is that a cap?
I'm going to say cap.
Okay. And what year do you think it was in?
It was way before that because Southern has been a blue blood for a long time. I don't know the exact year. I'm going to just throw a random year. I'm going to say 1932.
So you were right about being a cap. The fact is 1948. So the year prior.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. All
Yes,
right.
yes. Okay. One more. We're going to do another one, Coach.
Okay.
Factor cap. Southern University started playing college football in 1916. Factor cap.
Ooh. We know Southern University is an institution. Was founded in 1880. They revitalized in 1914. So I'm gonna say 1916 AD. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna say yes.
So that is a fact, and that
Yeah.
is correct. It is a
Yeah.
fact.
Yes.
They started playing in 1916.
All right.
Okay.
That's some good Southern University trivia.
Yes, yes. And we have one more fact or cap. The factor cap is the first official Bayou Classic football game between Southern University and Grambling State University was in 1971. Fact or cap?
Well, I mean, this one is pretty easy. This year was the 52nd annual Bayou Classic. Now, don't get me wrong. Southern University and Grambling have been playing for years. They're rival schools. But, I mean, 1 plus 1 is 2. So, if this was the 52nd annual Bayou Classic, then they first started playing in 1973. Now, they was playing prior to that in Tulane Stadium. It's Yeoman Stadium now, but the first Bayou Classic was in 1973.
Okay, so the official Bayou Classic football game was in 1974 when Grambling won, but the rivalry started in 1932. So it is listed as the 52nd, but it didn't start until the in the 74th year.
All right.
So
Well, I
so
mean,
that's why it's listed as the 74th, because they didn't they did it in that next year, in the beginning of that next year.
all
So
right. So yeah,
technically it didn't happen yet.
all
So
right. So that sounds like some semantics, but yeah, that's some good Southern University trivia,
yes, yes. And this is some stuff as alums we should know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, so coach, open discussion with Southern University, with the Bayou Classic. Do you think we should make some changes with the Bayou Classic? Do you think we should keep it going to the New Orleans Superdome? Or do you think we should start moving it around and maybe move into maybe Lake Charles, or move it into Monroe and different areas to gain a bigger following, or just keep it every year in New Orleans, Louisiana?
Should changes be made? Absolutely not. We had this discussion. Someone and myself had this discussion behind the scenes, and basically, they were saying that, people were saying that, hey, at some point, like, if Southern becomes dominant enough, they should. No, in fact, one of my coworkers, shout out to Coach. I saw him pretty much at every Southern University home game. A couple of times I was bringing your little future alum to the restroom, and he was saying that, people saying that, you know, Southern should change the location. And of course, the Bayou Classic hasn't been played every single year in New Orleans. Of course, in 2005 when Senior passed, of course we didn't go to that one. It was in Houston, and people that I know that went to the game, they was like, Coach, it didn't have the same feel, the same energy, the same juice in Houston. So they was like, no, we don't want to do Houston. And then of course when COVID hit, they had it in Shreveport, and it didn't hit the same either. So at the end of the day, the reason why it's such a big event and such a big spectacle is because isn't part of it is because it's Thanksgiving weekend and it's in New Orleans. And Coach and I was talking about this. He was like, some people feel like Southern eventually at some point should try to get into the FCS playoffs. Back in the gap, it was the one AA playoffs. And he was like, that would be insane. I'm like, Coach, that would be insane. The reason being is because first and foremost, Southern and Grambling generates more money Thanksgiving weekend with the Bayou Classic than probably the entire FCS playoffs combined. That's first of all. Second of all, you would have to pay to play in the FCS playoffs, whereas you get paid for playing in the Bayou Classic. Then if you get to host the SWAC championship game, you get paid for that. And then if you get to play in the Celebration Bowl, you get paid for that. So if Southern was able to win the Celebration Bowl, host it at home, and win the Bayou Classic, win the SWAC championship at home at A.W. Mumford Stadium, Peterson Field, and then turn around and win the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta, you would get a bag as opposed to if you actually legitimately won the FCS playoffs. First of all, you'd have to pay to get in the playoffs. And not only that, the FCS playoffs starts the same weekend as the Bayou Classic. So you'd have to move the Bayou Classic up a week. And if you did move it up a week, it would have the same following. It wouldn't have the same attraction. It wouldn't have the same feel. It wouldn't have the same buzz. So it would be insane to do anything with the Bayou Class. That's the reason why, even though, in New Orleans, they've, you know, hotels and other like venues and other businesses have spiked prices and done ridiculous things to HBCU fans that go to the Bayou Classic weekend. Even with that being said, you still make a ridiculous amount of money on Bayou Classic weekend. So it would be foolish to tinker with the Bayou Classic, to change the location or locale. People have talked about moving it to Houston. It was in Houston one year, it didn't do well. They talked about, hey, maybe one year we should play in Shreveport. It was in Shreveport, it didn't do well. They talked about Atlanta. There were points where when Southern played in the Heritage Bowl back in the Gap, Southern has never played in the Celebration Bowl. Essentially, it's the same game, just the updated version of it. More money, more sponsorship, so on and so forth. But the years Southern and Jackson State and Grambling and those type of teams didn't play in the Heritage Bowl, there was no interest in it. Also, they talked about, hey, maybe bringing it to Hawaii. Yeah, that's good at a certain point of the year, but I don't think you're gonna get 63,000 people to come to Hawaii to the Bayou Classic. So at the end of the day, the state makes a lot of money. The city of New Orleans makes a lot of money, and both institutions, Southern and Grambling, they make a lot of money by the Bayou Classic being in New Orleans Thanksgiving weekend. So it'll be foolish to tinker with it.
Okay, coach, because I was looking up some things about the Bayou Classic, and they were talking about how it supports over 200 jobs. So that shows you it brings work into the city when we bring it, home. So that's a great thing. It allows people to get some work who may not be working or maybe a low income or whatever it may be. So that's a great thing that it does bring that kind of money in to the city.
Yeah, I'm talking about the people that work at the Caesar Superdome in terms of,
Yeah, it's
whether
it's
we talk.
all around, whether it's the Superdome, it's whether with the schools, it's with the cities. It
Yeah,
just
yeah.
brings a lot of income in for individuals.
Oh, without
So
question.
with that being said, let's move on to stick and move. Let's talk about the first thing boxing, coach. What you have for me?
Well, a few weeks back, uh, Devin the Dream Haney, he was able to pick up one of the welterweight championships from Brian Norman Jr. You know, Major shout out to you know Devin the Dream Haney, Bill Haney, the entire Haney family, and not only that, but shout out to Brian Norman Sr. and Brian Norman Jr. Of course, there were individuals that was trying to separate LDBC family members, and I don't know why some people think black people have to be divided when it comes to certain things, because guess what? When Hispanic fighters fight, when two Mexicans fighters fight, when two Puerto Rican fighters fight, the fan bases don't have to hate each other. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of Devin the Dream Haney hate out there, but I was happy Devin the Dream Haney, he fought well, and it was a good event. So, major shout out to him and major shout out to Brian Norman Jr. In addition to that, uh, undisputed super middleweight champion, the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport of boxing, Terrence Bud Crawford. He was stripped by the WBC of his WBC super middleweight championship, and basically, he told Mauricio Suleiman in the WBC, forget your belt. I really don't care about your belt. I care less about it. And the thing people don't realize when it comes to these sanctioning bodies is they get 3% of your overall purse. So if you're a boxer and you made $100 million for the fight, you'd have to pay the sanctioning bodies, each sanctioning body, a percentage. So if that sanctioning body gets 3%, you'd have to pay them $3 million of that $100 million you made. If you made $1 million, you would have to give them 300,000, and that's each sanctioning body. That's not one of them. And basically, they was like, okay, these sanctioning fees for these titles, like, where does that money go? It doesn't go towards fighter pensions. It doesn't go towards like testing for the fighters. It doesn't go towards anything substantial that would benefit the fighters. Basically, it's money that goes into these sanctioning body pockets. So at the end of the day, he was like, hey, forget your belt. People know I'm the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. They know I'm the undisputed fighter in the world. So in this particular instance, he has all the leverage. The fact that you stripped him, and that's the thing about it. Mauricio Suleiman was smart. When Terrence Bud Crawford said he didn't want to pay the sanctioning fee, either you should have done one or two things. Either you should have just took the L, because people know he's the top fighter in the sport of boxing, or what you should have did was eventually elevate another fighter to his mandatory and say, hey, if you don't fight this mandatory fight, then we're gonna strip you. At least that way you could have saved face. But at the end of the day, it made Mauricio Suleiman look silly. That's why they call him Mauricio Silly Man. And at the end of the day, like, it shows you the level of corruption in the sport of boxing. And more than anything, is allowed, fighters like Jake Paul to jump in the sport of boxing, because as boxing fans, like diehard, hardcore boxing fans and members of the LDBC, we haven't been getting the fights we want over the years. So it opened up a lane for someone like a Jake Paul. And in addition to that, it allowed someone like Turkey Al-Sheikh to come into the sport of boxing and it's basically, essentially take it over. So at the end of the day, like, that's another major thing that's happened this week in the sport of boxing. But more than anything, undisputed heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk, he said he won't fight my favorite fighter, the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder. Uh, basically he made it clear like the sanctioning bodies, they're trying to force a mandatory fight on him, and he was like, "Look, hey, I don't care if I had to drop all my straps. I want Wilder." And basically, Wilder is like the last of the elite level fighters that Usyk hasn't beaten yet. He's already beaten Tyson Fury, the Gypsy Queen. He's already beaten. He beat Fury twice. He's beaten Anthony Joshua twice. Now he wants Deontay Wilder, and it seems like Deontay Wilder is kind of downplaying it a little bit. But hopefully we could get this fight, and hopefully Wilder can return to Wilder of old and stop Usyk and become the undisputed heavyweight champion that I always wanted him to be. But that's all I have in terms of the sport of boxing. Back to UK.
Okay, well, let's move on to Ryan Lewis. The Ryan Lewis Sr., the cornerback coach.
Well, basically, this question is many individuals, ask like who should be Southern University's next defensive coordinator. And in the community section of my channel, I basically asked this question: who should Marshall Faulk bring in as his defensive coordinator? A, Ryan Lewis. B, Jason Rollins. C, a different hire entirely. D, doesn't matter, just win, baby. And the reason I say no to Jason Rollins is because when Southern had interest in hiring Marshall Faulk after Jackson State hired Deion Sanders, basically the NFL Network scandal broke and Southern moved away from Marshall Faulk. And at the time, Jason Rollins was Southern's defensive coordinator. And they made him the interim head coach because he had a senior heavy team. And basically, Southern didn't do well that year. And, he didn't do a good job as the interim head coach. Now he's currently the defensive coordinator at Grambling. And truthfully speaking, Southern has struggled a good portion of the year offensively in terms of offense. But yet they put up 28 points and they beat Grambling. And not only that, but Grambling's defense hasn't done extremely well these last 2 years in the Bayou Classic against Southern. So why would I bring Jason Rollins back? Jay Good and I talked about this behind the scenes, and basically we both are in agreement. If you coached at Southern over the last 20 years and you haven't won a SWAC championship, you haven't won a Celebration Bowl, Southern shouldn't be interested in bringing you back. I would prefer Southern hire and Marshall Faulk bring in Ryan Lewis as Southern University's defensive coordinator. I think he would be a better choice for defensive coordinator over Jason Rollins. I prefer Ryan Lewis. That's my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I think Southern should hire Ryan Lewis as the defensive coordinator. And then if not, bring in another elite level, not just some average run-of-the-mill defensive coordinator. I'm talking about an elite level coordinator. I'm not just talking about a name or just some guy, just another Jag. See, that's the problem with Southern over the last 20 years. That's why you haven't won a SWAC championship since 2013. We're trying to do away with all of the homeboy hires, the good old boy network, the favoritism, the politics, the nepotism. No favoritism, no nepotism, no politics. No, just because you my homeboy. Just like Terrence Graves, the board liked him, so we're going to hire him, and he going to make Mark Frederick, who was a trash offensive coordinator, because, they partners or whatever, even though he played under him. But that's another story for another day. So at the end of the day, I think Southern, if you already hired Marshall Faulk, so you completely went against the grain, in terms of everything you've done, whether it was Terrence Graves, Eric Dooley, basically, in terms of we don't want nobody else off that Coach Pete Richardson coaching tree, players that played for him. You went against the grain, you got to keep going against the grain. So bring in some elite level coaches, and you need to start with an elite level defensive coordinator. I prefer Ryan Lewis Sr. over Jason Rollins.
Okay, Coach. And a quick fact for those who may not know much about Ryan Lewis. He was a coach in Colorado Schools of Mines, and he was an NFL player with the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Colts, the Giants, and so forth, so on. He played over 7 years. So, with that being said, let's move on to Jason Rollins. What are your thoughts?
Well, basically, I'll just kind of give you my thoughts on that. He's currently the defensive coordinator for Grambling. Current Grambling head coach Mickey Joseph. Mickey Joseph is from New Orleans. Also, he played at the University of Nebraska. Uh, and basically, his contract is up at Grambling. So, many people speculate that Southern could potentially hire, uh, Jason Rollins. And like I said, Jason Rollins was once the interim, the interim head coach at Southern. To me, you know, why spin a block and go back to him? If anything, if he was the guy that we think he is, he'll still currently be the head coach of Southern because he would have did well when he was the interim head coach. So at the end of the day, I would prefer that they they move in a different direction. No, when it comes to that, no for me in terms of Jason Rollins is a hard no.
Yes, because the record that he had was 4-7. So that isn't
Yeah,
the
I mean
best. That's not even
he
half.
he didn't do a great job when he was the interim head coach at Southern. I felt like he was a decent defensive coordinator prior to that, but you had your opportunity to be a head coach. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the night, truthfully speaking, I prefer that they don't have any swag retread, you know, guys that have been lifetime swag coaches in fact, like Terrence Graves. Hiring a cat like that is the reason why you're in the position you're in. So I think they need to go in a different direction.
Are there any other things you want to touch on about the hiring and the winning for Southern University or any associated team, whether it's Grambling or even in any other sport that you want to touch on before we move on, Coach?
Well, I think at the end of the day, when it comes to Marshall Faulk and who he's going to hire in terms of his staff, so on and so forth, let me just reemphasize this. He needs to hire an elite level defensive coordinator, an elite level offensive coordinator, an elite level special teams coordinator, an elite level strength conditioning coach, an elite level offensive line coach. And you just need to hire and put a bunch of good people around you, good position coaches, guys that can really coach and teach. And you just kind of need to do your thing and move forward. You need to hit the ground running because, basically you're working against the clock at this point.
Yes, yes. Um, let's take some time, Coach, and send out some shout outs to some great individuals we have in our corner that supports us. We want to start off, and we want to shout out to Jared. Shout out to you, Joseph. We want to shout out to you, Trill Wheel. What's up? Main event.
Mark,
Yes, main event Mark. Casey, J Bar, what's up to you guys? The LDBC, what's up? Billy Bob, Motivation to be a Millionaire, what's up to you? Thank you for your love and your support. Brent Fox, Jaguar Nations, we love y'all. We want to shout out to 3325 Chucky, what's up to you? Straight to the Point Sports Enter 7-8. We want to shout out to you.
straight to the point, sports and entertainment.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I messed you all up. And we want to shout out to Main Dash XCII. Juke for Life. Shout out to y'all. Later 39, we want to shout out to you. And for anyone else that we may have not shout out to you, thank you for your love, your support. Thank you for watching. We love you. Thanks, thanks, thanks. Coach, are there anyone else that you would like to shout out that we did not shout out?
Yeah, and I would just want shout out to, like you said, the entire LDBC, the General 7A Sports TV. I want to shout out the LDB, not only the LDBC, but I want to shout out the Southern Baller Show Collective, my brother Jared 11 Green, Brent Fox, JB, uh, Big Joe Townsend. Shout out to everybody at Old Hillside Bourbon Company. I don't drink. However, the holiday season is coming upon us. We in the midst of a holiday season. So Old Hillside Bourbon Company, our brother Joe Townsend, he's part owner. And we trying to get him to the same level, trying to get their company to the same level as Uncle Near's. It's a black-owned company. So go get a bottle of Old Hillside Bourbon, Old Hillside Whiskey. And, to Jay Good. And just shout out to like I said, the entire LDBC. Shout out to, like you said, Relaxing Calm Rain, Motivation to Be a Millionaire. Made shout out to Motivation to Be a Millionaire because I heard he was in another chat trying to get the last 15 subscribers. We need to reach 1,000 subscribers. So shout out to him. Straight to the point, sports and entertainment.
And Coach, real quick, I'm sorry, but we need to shout out Big Reg, host of Big Boy Talk. Shout out to him as well.
Too. Yeah. And salute to the entire chat. We appreciate it. Appreciate y'all constantly coming through and showing love. You are greatly appreciated. Yeah, they.
Yes. And also, we want to shout out before we move forward. Let's shout out to Ray and to Rude Dog. Shout out to you all. We love you. We love you. We love you. Family, we love you. They couldn't be here. For those who may not know, they couldn't be here. They have some prior engagements, and we love you. That's family forever. So,
well,
shout out to them as well.
You got a couple people asking that in the comment section. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Motivation to Be a Millionaire, you know what I'm saying? He was saying, hey, what happened to Rude Dog and Ray Swank? Yeah, well, I did the short with Ray Swank for Thanksgiving. But they got their own stuff going on. Rude Dog has a family. In addition to that, man, salute to the brother Jay Good in the chat. Salute to you. But Rude Dog, he got his own family. Ray Swank, King Ray, he got a lot going on too. So, it's difficult to get all four of us on the same accord. But hey, just you and I, let's get it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, shout out to Jay Good. I didn't want to miss you. I'm sorry. I may have spelled it wrong, but shout out to you. You know who we're talking about. Shout out to you.
He just came through in the chat. Like I said,
much love.
Jay Good is a huge part of the HBCU fanatics with him, myself, and Jared 11 Green. And not only that, but he's a huge part of the channel. Like a lot of the content that I drop on my channel, it's conversation that he and I have behind the scenes, like Southern University's brain erosion, that type of thing. So Jay Good is a huge part of the family and a huge part of the channel,
Yes. So let's before we wrap it up, Coach, let them know how they can reach you, how they can follow you, how they can like, subscribe, and share your information.
Well, more than anything, you could catch me at Coach 67 Sports TV on all social media platforms. However, I am primarily here on YouTube. And of course, I also have a Southern University football Facebook group. The link is posted to the top of the comment section. So you can catch us there. And more than anything, I'm here on YouTube. Less than 20 subscribers away from that 1,000 subscriber mark. So if you've not done so already, please subscribe to the channel, like, share the content with other members of Jaguar Nation. And we just appreciate everybody that's been rocking with the channel, all the day one subscribers, all the new subscribers, everybody in between. We appreciate y'all. Y'all are greatly valued. And like I said already, if you've not done so already, subscribe to the channel. You dig?
All right, guys. And before we close out, like we have been in the past, giving you a quote for the day. The quote said, "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible." So, family, we thank you all for tuning in. Y'all have a great evening, great night, great day. And till we meet again, bye bye.
Peace and blessings, and go Jags, you dig? Go Jags.
And before we want to shout out our future alum, my baby Kobe.
Yeah, of course, you know, he was like, hey, Uncle Jim, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm like, buddy, you can't hold it. He was like, no, I gotta go to the bathroom now. I'm like, all right, well, let's go to the bathroom. But yeah, he a diehard member of Jaguar Nation too. With mom and I, he come to all of the games. So, shout out to him. Uncle Jim, love you, buddy. You dig? And shout out to Jaguar Nation. Go Jags. You dig?
All right. Well, till we meet again, peace and blessings. Bye bye.
Peace and blessings.